Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another great podcast. Who knew that we'd do it again? As always, I mean, really, if you haven't gone to youtube.com/Chris Voss, it's my name. You spell it out CHRISVOSS. If you haven't gone to the YouTube channel, you need to subscribe to it. There's like 4,000 videos over there or something. I mean, just an endless things that you can watch. You don't even need to sleep anymore. You can just don't watch TikTok all night long for 4 hours. Go watch the Chris Voss Show on on YouTube for 4 hours. There's so many videos, and the beautiful thing is it'll expand your mind and make you smarter as opposed to TikTok. So there's that. Go see all of our groups though, all over Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. All those crazy places the kids are at. Big groups on LinkedIn. Also, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. You can see all the books we're reading and reviewing over there. And I think there's still one giveaway going on for 2 of my books over there. You can take and sign up for that as well. Today, we have an amazing gentleman on the show. He's going to be talking to us about his company and history. His company is called CAST.AI. Leon Kuperman is going to be talking to us today. He is the co-founder and CTO of CAST.AI, or CAST.AI, we could just call it. I'm giving you the .com or the .ai, I should say. He is the formerly vice president of security products, OCI, at Oracle. His professional experience spans across tech companies such as IBM, Trition, hosted PCI. He founded and served as the CTO of Zenitch, a enterprise security company protecting large enterprises with cloud WAF. He has 20 plus years experience in product management, software design, and development, all the way through to production and deployment, or production deployment, however you want to put it, but I put an and in there. That's just the way I roll. He is an authority in cloud computing, web application security, and payment card industry, data security, standard e-commerce, and web application architecture. How are you doing? Welcome to the show, Leon.
Hey, Chris. Good to be with you. Thank you very much for having me.
There you go. Did I name Trition? Did I pronounce
Yeah,
that correctly on the name of that company?
yeah. It's fruition. It's not a real word. It's like truth and intuition slammed together.
I like
So,
that. That works. That works.
uh,
So, welcome to the show. Give us your plug so people can find you on the interwebs.
yeah. So the only social network that I really use for business is LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I think it's slash executive CTO, and hit me up.
There you go. There you go. So, before we get into CAST.AI, you've got an amazing origin story. Let's talk about you and kind of your upbringing, history, and kind of what got you through some of these different companies and to the place you're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of to start, like, if you want to look at my professional career, I'm an engineer by trade, I guess by passion. So I started coding at a very early age, like when I could like beg my parents to scrounge enough money together for, I think my first computer was like an Apple clone, like an Apple IIe clone. And, I always told my wife I would be doing software, whether it paid a lot or it didn't. So we just got lucky that it happens to be a pretty good profession for us. I come from an immigrant family. We migrated to North America, specifically to Canada, in the late 70s, 1978. I was 5, so you don't hear the Russian accent, although I do speak Russian fluently. Well,
Oh
some would
wow.
say fluently. Um, the and I kind of got my love of engineering and science from my brother and my parents. Everyone's an engineer in the family. I kind of broke tradition and went into computer engineering or computer science, and everyone else is kind of in mechanical or electrical.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the technology background, is like those, that 10,000 hour rule of, where people get fairly good at something that they do all of the time. And for me, that was software engineering or software development.
I'm good at nothing, and I've spent 10,000 hours developing and getting really good at just nothing.
I'm sure there's something, Chris. I'm sure there's something we can put a bow tie
I
on.
don't know. There's probably gaming or something. I don't know. Call of Duty, probably. I don't know. Something like that.
Probably
I've done a few podcasts. That might be it too.
one or two, one or
One
two.
or two, 1 or 2 thousand. This is an interesting journey. We were talking about before the show. You basically grew up in the Soviet Union.
Mm.
pre-wall, which is pretty extraordinary. I don't meet a lot of people that have gone through that experience. How did that shape you, or get you really in? Maybe did that influence your interest in computers, or was computers maybe a way to get out of sort of the environment you were growing up in and get into I don't know, the a better future or something? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting because my only recollect, I was pretty young when we moved, so my only recollection of the former Soviet Union or Russia, I lived in a city called Odessa, are black and white photo. Like remember things in black and white because I grew up looking at those photos, right? So it's kind of a
Hmm.
reinforcement. I wouldn't say so much that technology was the kind of out, but I did understand the struggle of immigration and the struggle of immigrants. Imagine a family that moves here and your mom, dad, maybe your grandparents don't speak a word of the language, come to the country with like $5 in your pocket, and you're basically starting from scratch. And some of these folks, when they come here, they've had some success in their lives previously. And the reason that they made that jump over the pond is for their kids, right? For their kids to have a better future. So I grew up watching my parents as serial entrepreneurs. And why are most immigrants entrepreneurs? Well, because they can't really get that they can't become doctors, lawyers, accountants. They don't either have the education or the background or the language, frankly, to have those professions. So they're forced into entrepreneurship. They're forced into owning that restaurant or that convenience store. And in the case of my dad and my mom, I watched them go through all of these cycles. And I knew that very early on in life, even far before even high school, that I wanted to be in business for myself. I didn't want to uh, have my fate in the hands of any large corporation, or I didn't want to be a cog in the wheel, so to speak.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely I identified that early on where I was like, I don't really want to be work for other people. I don't like other people. So there's that. But no, it's I can feel you there. But yeah, I see. I grew up in the Soviet era, and I'm not sure if you guys went through this as children in the Soviet era, but I grew up hiding under my steel desk that was probably filled with lead, because it was this the 60s 70s. But I grew up hiding under my desk from you people, from the nuclear bomb. We'd do these nuclear bomb raids, and you would hide under this desk that clearly was never going to save you from a nuclear bomb, which was kind of ironic to think about it in the time. But somehow there was some semblance of security and knowing what to do when the nuclear bomb hit. And so I grew up fearing the Soviets, and I still think sometimes of Russia as the USSR. I mean, that's how old I am. But it's interesting you grew up to that time. You mentioned too that you grew up Jewish in that area, and that wasn't the most friendly sort of place for that for Jews.
No, in fact, if you look back historically, there were a few places in the Soviet Union that were
Hmm.
kind of havens for Jewish populations. Odessa,
Hmm.
which is in the Ukraine now, it's changed
Hmm.
hands a few times, but it actually started with the Ottoman Empire and then moved to Imperial Russia and is now part of the Ukraine. And it's still a very Russian-speaking city. Uh, was considered a free port, so it was like a place where you could do trade freely, and that attracted a very large Jewish population. And there were a few other places in Eastern Europe that kind of had those centralized populations. So while living there, you still felt the anti-Semitism, but it was a very like you were in a place that was kind of accepting of your existence. But like if you move into the outskirts, it life was obviously difficult for minorities, and especially minorities that were blamed for a lot of the problems in society. So yeah, it was a difficult time. But Chris, back to your point on the hiding under the hiding, I think at the end of it, there was propaganda on all sides, and the lowest common denominator was people were people, and everyone was scared, right? And to
Yeah.
different degrees. And yeah, everyone was villainizing the other side,
Yeah.
but the truth is somewhere in the middle. It's great.
Definitely. I remember watching, I mean, there was a movie years ago, back when I was a kid you would hear about people trying to scale the wall and get over the wall and balloon over the wall, and people that were dying, wrapped in barbed wire trying to escape Russia. And you really got an empathy for the situation. I remember one thing that kind of brought me clarity was Sting's song. The Russians love their children too. They're just like us. They're just trying to deal with it, and that's when you kind of realize that there's it's more of a government thing, a government against government, as opposed to people against people. And I remember when the wall fell. It was a beautiful thing. It was an amazing, shocking thing to see it fall. But it was interesting to. I remember Neil Peart of Rush. You're up in Canada, so we'll do a Rush reference. Neil Peart wrote the lyrics. He said, who's going to pay for all the wasted lives for a dead ideology? And who pays for this? All the people who suffered, all the people who died, all the people who died trying to climb that wall. So you've gone through an interesting journey, and some of our best people that have come to America have been immigrants. Steve Jobs, the CEO of Google right now, grew up on a dirt floor in India. The best and the brightest people aren't, the Americans don't have the corner on the best and brightest people. So let's talk about how that shaped your journey and some of the companies you got to and what got you really interested maybe in AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you, like before the current CEO of Google, Sergey Brin is also a
Yeah.
Russian Jewish immigrant. I always joke with my parents that the difference between the two was he had a math professor as a dad, so I already started back on a foot or two, which just a little josh with my dad. But I can
Your
probably
dad
work.
needed a garage in Silicon Valley. That's basically,
Yeah,
or you
but I
needed
can
one.
but I can work much better with my hands than Sergey, I think, because of my dad's a mechanic, right, by
Well, there
trade.
you go. There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, so I got, because of that kind of growing up with the prevalence of math, science, engineering, basically what we call STEM now in education terms, was a huge focus in our household. Obviously, computer science came to me very early. Um, I Because I started coding so young, my university years were pretty easy. Like I really did not have to study very hard when I went to college. It all came very naturally. Again, that 10,000 hour reference. And then I got this internship at IBM. And when I got into the first kind of 6 months at IBM, I thought, this is terrible. I was in it was some arcane back-end compiler group where like the ivory tower beards were so long. And I'm like, this is not for me. I cannot be a software engineer. This is just too arcane. But luckily I got switched to, I maneuvered around and I got uh, injected into this little startup group that was doing e-commerce back in the late 90s when it wasn't even a thing. And we built an e-commerce platform within IBM. And the team got a lot of notoriety because we launched like LL Bean and Sears and so like a bunch of companies that started going online in the very, very early days and actually performing credit card transactions. And from there, I said, this is technology. This is the thing that sparked my excitement and interest and really kind of elevated my thought process. And I said, oh, this is fantastic. I will never be happy at IBM though. It's just such a big company, so much bureaucracy. Even though some of that was changing under Lou Gerstner, and I started out my entrepreneurial journey. And really, that's the last time I ever worked for a large company up until I was at Oracle. Like, so the gap between kind of large organizations was, kind of 20 plus years. And, kind of through that startup journey, I'll fast forward just to kind of the tail end just before Oracle. I found myself in a position at a company where we were attacked. There was a cybersecurity attack, and one of the things I realized is like we were completely unprepared. So, and then I realized not only were we completely unprepared for this cyber attack, it was one of those ransom things. Like
Oh,
your
geez.
we're going to keep your business down until you pay us money. And
Wow.
before then, Bitcoin wasn't a thing. So I literally had to Western Union $5,000 to a place in Siberia.
I shouldn't laugh.
And what was scary about that is like this hostage situation was literally like millions of dollars a day in business that was being held up. Um,
Wow.
and and so once that kind of, as bad as that experience was, and I'll tell folks like the worst things that you're living through, there's always something to be learned from those really bad things.
Mhm.
As as terrible as you think they are in the moment, you can probably exit with something of a gem. And my gem out of that experience was the idea for Zenitch. And we built Zenitch to protect companies from cybersecurity threats like the ones that I lived through. They were called denial of service attacks. And eventually, we grew the business, and we ended up selling the business to Oracle. And that's how I ended up at Oracle, kind of as the last big company that I ever worked for.
Mhm. And then was the next step CAST.AI, or where did you go from there?
Yeah, we had actually built a couple companies in parallel. So there was a
Mhm.
company called Cujo as well, which also did cybersecurity, but protecting the end home user, which is
Mhm.
still very much doing extremely well. But one of the things that one of the heartburn moments that I had at Zenitch, and it happened almost every single month, was my CEO would come to me with the cloud bill, like basically what we were paying AWS. And we started at a couple $1,000 a month. And
Uh-huh.
then by the time we were done, it was like a couple $100,000 a month. And Yuri would ask me, dude, what's up with this bill? There's nothing I can do. There's no financial wizardry I can do to kind of, we basically failed at cost management. As successful as the business was,
Wow.
we could not get our heads around the primary cost driver, which was cloud expense.
Wow.
And and that kind of left a deep scar for me. I was like, I just felt like AWS, no matter what I did, whether it was my fault or AWS's fault, as the head of technology, I couldn't get my financial house in order.
Mhm.
And I felt that everyone else, I can't be the anomaly here. I can't be the only tech leader that is feeling this pain. And when we dug into the market, we said, this is huge. Everyone is overspending on cloud. It's not just us. There's a severe industry problem here. And that's how CAST was born.
That's awesome. I've had a lot of friends, and I've had friends that work for AWS. The I've had friends that have worked for them, and like all of a sudden, yeah, overnight they get a bill. In fact, one of my friends, their daughter or something did a little startup. She was working on a little project, and suddenly I don't know what she did wrong, but suddenly she got like a $20,000 bill or $30,000 bill. And it was like some little project, and they were asking for help to fund it, or reach out to AWS to help them. And I don't know, the friends that I've had at AWS are usually fairly nice a little bit, but but yeah, it can balloon out of control. So did that
Well,
help you launch CAST.AI?
yeah, so we looked at it from a first principles perspective. We said, okay, like where's the money going? Like, is there significant waste in the system that we can help eliminate? And the answer was yes, for the most part. There's systematic waste built into the process, and I think it happened with kind of this what's called DevOps movement in the industry. And for those who don't understand, I'll just explain it briefly. Basically, if you go back 10, 15 years ago, if you as a software engineer needed computing resources, you'd go to the finance team and you'd say, hey guys, buy me some computers. We're going to do this project. And it would go through this kind of top down waterfall budgeting and funding exercise for that project. And then what CEOs realized, well, hey, we're hamstringing our engineering team. These guys have lots of great innovations, lots of great ideas. We need to unleash them. And the unleashing potential came with the advent of cloud, because now no longer did you have to buy these computers, you could rent them per the minute or per the hour. And now and so that became an enabler for moving the keys from the finance department to the engineering department. Now I, as an engineer, could come to the cloud with my own cloud account that's under the company umbrella and say, I need these 30 computers and this much hard drive and this much network, and I'm going to go build my innovation. And businesses love that. And that's the boom that we've seen in tech over the last, since 2007 till now. That has been the big advent and boom. As a startup, I no longer need millions of dollars for a data center. That doesn't exist anymore. You start a company, you don't go and raise money for physical infrastructure. You just need enough to cover your cloud bill.
Yeah.
And so that movement to the engineering department opened up this huge wave of innovation, but it also created the financial control problem.
Hmm.
Engineers aren't accountants. They don't care what the bill is. So they're going to spend what they're going to spend. And there's no financial discipline on an engineering team to say, wait a minute, maybe we're wasting money. Maybe we don't need all of these resources.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that kind of dichotomy and the flip. Yeah, we created a lot of good for the world, endless innovation, but we now need to come back and kind of balance the books. How do we make sure folks are spending what they need to spend and not more than what they need to spend?
Yeah. Yeah. So was that what CAST.AI was born out of then? Is that the proponent for starting the company and get it going?
It was exactly the innovation and the origin story. Most good ideas it's invention is or what's the phrase, I'm forgetting it, right?
Necessity is the engine of
Yeah,
invention or something.
yeah, the mother of
Yeah.
invention. That's right.
Other invention.
So we built a solution for a future that we could adopt ourselves, and it turns out to be a great fit for many different organizations. And it's based on a few principles, which I
Mm-hmm.
can kind of highlight. The first one is that we don't want our customers to commit to cloud companies like Google, Amazon, Azure. Those are the three big ones for multi-year contracts. That's not the promise of cloud. So cloud promises that just-in-time resource, which means when I need something, I can go get it and pay for it. I don't need to commit to a 10-year deal or a 5-year deal or a 3-year deal. That's a kind of a negotiation tactic from decades ago. So that's kind of a first principle. The second one is we are short on human beings for almost everything in engineering. I heard a stat yesterday, last weekend. We have something like 25 million coders in the world. We
Wow.
probably need 250 million to meet the demand. Like we're 10x short the number of people that can actually write software.
Wow.
So because we're sort of short on so many people, anything that can be done automatically should be done automatically. So
Mhm.
automation was the second kind of core founding principle of the business. We need to be able to automate things that humans have previously done, so
Mhm.
that we can get machines to do the work and get humans out of the way and let them focus on the more creative and higher order thinking engineering tasks that they need to do.
One of the ways we've really failed as a nation, especially here in America, is not building enough engineers and stuff. Well, that was what made us a great nation as an empire for a long time, and we're really failing at it. And now with the job market being all crazy, and I think we've developed less engineers here in America than we have ever. I mean, it's like I don't know, people are just good at playing video games basically at this point.
Yeah. If you look at the typical kind of engineering roster and where companies are recruiting from, a lot of
Mhm.
folks coming from China, India, former Soviet Union, Europe, Brazil has even now become a hotspot. We get less and less engineering talent locally in the US. And if you remember, like last year, there was this ban on these H-1B visas. I
Yeah.
think it was a Trump era ban, which I never understood. It's like the thing we're short of is we're not going to allow into the country, right?
Yeah.
It made absolutely, like America as a principle was based on it's a population of immigrants, right? Like
Mhm.
there was native indigenous folks here were here first. Everyone else was an immigrant, right? There's no other
Mhm.
Native American.
Mhm. Yeah, and sadly, it was also built on racism, so that tends to rear its ugly head every now and then. So,
Yeah,
it's a sad state. Thankfully, we're hopefully back on track, and hopefully we stay on track. But yeah, I mean, I was just citing earlier this morning the book by the guy who created Vox, Matthew Iglesias, 1 Billion Americans: The Case for Thinking Bigger. We have to compete with China and the way China's going. But let's get back to your company and give us an overview of what Cast AI does, and then we'll get into the weeds.
yeah, absolutely. So very simply, we provide our customers with a very simple automation platform that plugs into their existing environment. We don't work for all customers. They have to be kind of on a certain technology track. We just took a bet that technology track would be the future. And if they're on that track, which is called Kubernetes, by the way, I'll explain it in a moment. We plug into their environment seamlessly, and then we take the control of the wheel, right? So all of the scaling operations that need to be done are managed by CAST. And the freakonomics aspect here is that a typical cloud company like AWS, for example, may have like 150 to 200 different SKUs or computers that are available for rent. they all have different characteristics and performance profiles and costs associated to them. And so our technology is basically cost driven. So we look in the open market and we say, what is the best computer configuration that currently exists in the market that will fulfill your need at the lowest possible cost?
Hmm.
So thinking about the technology as a finance first operation that will optimize every single choice that we make against the cloud, like AWS, for example, or Google or Azure, to make sure that that bill is lower. And by doing that continuous optimization and not having any human beings involved, hence the AI part of the company, we are able to drastically lower customer bills, and they don't have to take any recommendations. There's no report that they have to run and then try to implement afterwards. It just starts happening from day one, and that's, I think, where the eureka moment happens for customers.
That's pretty freaking awesome. I mean, that's really awesome, and saving money, of course. Like I said, I've I've just been like, I've seen some crazy stories about bills and everything else where things just get way the heck out of hand. So, break down, what are you, who are usually your clients? Like, who do you usually work with?
Well, so we're still, like, our company has been around for a couple of years, but what we've noticed is that uh, companies that are born on the cloud, meaning like they've been created in the last 5 to 7 to 10 years, uh, find it easiest to adopt our technology. And so we've started to we started with our initial customer base being those early innovators, if you will, Chris.
Hmm.
One of the things that we realized, when you teach a computer to play a game, the computer needs to know the rules of that game. So, like, if you've ever seen the AlphaGo, AI that plays Go against some of the best human players in the world, there was a great Netflix series on the topic. Or they've even taught computers to play StarCraft now at the most elite level. And since you're a gamer, that I think that would be super interesting to you.
Yeah.
I think it's called AlphaStar. It's a company that Google bought, in the last 5 or 6 years, that produces this amazing AI. But one of the things why those AIs are so successful is because they have rules of engagement. They know how to play the board, and they know what's off limits and what's on limits. So think about a game like StarCraft as an example.
Hmm.
Well, if you're going to do a computer automation for something, it's much easier if you have those rules of engagement. So with CAST, we said, look, if we can't just optimize any environment across any application, across any technology set, it's just too varied. So what if we focused our scope of thinking just on a subset of the problem, and maybe put the legacy companies aside and focused on the folks that are moving to the latest generation of technology? And that happens to be this thing called cloud native, which is a technology that was born again in Google data centers. It was used to be called Borg. They had a, if you're familiar with the Star Trek reference, right? They had a
Hmm.
system in their environment called Borg that would basically allow every developer, every engineer to deploy and manage their applications the same way. And they turned that into a completely free and open source project called Kubernetes. Kubernetes is Greek for navigator, I believe, right? So
Hmm.
it's navigation of the cloud, and hence the logo is is a sailing, a sailing wheel. And so we took a bet that most organizations and companies would move to Kubernetes in some form or fashion over the next 5 years. And why did we do that? Well, that allowed us to apply some intelligent rules to an environment where the rules of engagement are well understood. So now, if the rules of engagement are well understood, we can start applying machine learning and AI to the problem, because we're not dealing with a general AI problem. We're dealing with a very specific set of predictions we have to make.
Mm, that's pretty awesome. It says on your website you can cut your cloud bill in half. That's pretty freaking awesome. That's actually some chunk of change right there.
Yeah, I think in one of our first promos was asterisk, asterisk, or we'll pay the difference. That got a lot of heads turning towards us.
Wow.
I don't know if the lawyers asked us to take it down, but it was a pretty cool claim, and it's true. Like, unless you are, as a company, spending all your time on your own optimizations, which some people do because they're at scale and they're big enough to have a whole team of people to do that. most people are just shocked by the amount of waste that's in their system.
Wow. I noticed one of your clients was Samsung, I guess.
They're actually an investor and a
Oh,
client
wow.
as well.
Oh, wow. That's always good. That's always good. You know, they're not going anywhere because you've got them locked in with your stock. the and you guys work with AWS. What other cloud services do you work with?
So today we work with AWS, Google Cloud, which is GCP, and Microsoft Azure. Those are the three primary ones. And then next year we're going to expand into Oracle Cloud and IBM Cloud. There's probably 5 or 6 really big clouds that the vast majority of the folks use. You know, AWS market share is so dominant right now. That's why we have that whole JEDI. Chris, did you know about this whole federal $10 billion contract, this JEDI contract from 2 years ago?
No, I don't think I specifically know.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So basically, the U.S. government has decided, all right, we're going to move to cloud. And a couple, I guess 2.5 years ago, they awarded the whole contract to AWS.
Oh, wow.
Like it was 10 billion bucks or something like that. And then we had this one interesting moment in August of 2019 when Capital One was breached on AWS Cloud. And it was really a pivotal moment for the JEDI contract because all of a sudden everything ground to a halt. And the US government said, wait a minute. We're putting all of our eggs in this basket, right? Maybe let's take a step back and see if other vendors, let's get some let's get some diversity in our vendor base so that if something bad happens to one, you know, we've actually got a disaster recovery plan. The whole government isn't shut down. Yeah. So since then, they've done a smart thing where they've divided that contract between AWS, Azure, and I think others are getting an opportunity to win some of that deal as well.
That's probably good because when one goes down, man, like you're just like everything goes down. It seems, or like a lot of your popular stuff goes down. You're just like, what? The internet's broken again.
Yeah.
So
Like
there you go.
yeah, like Facebook had a big outage was a month ago, right? Where
Yeah, like a couple days, man. They were down. Yeah.
and I think people were like their lives were totally upside down. I can't use WhatsApp. I can't use Facebook. Like, what is going on
Instagram,
here?
yeah.
Everything
It
was
was
down.
gnashing of teeth, wrenching of hair. It was getting biblical, man. It was getting
People
totally biblical.
people were jonesing like
Oh yeah.
coming off of a heroin
People
addiction.
were running naked through the streets. It was like Paradise Lost or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It did feel kind of weird, but it screwed up Verizon. And so my Verizon phone wasn't working. It was all scrambled, and like I think the data was working, but the phone wasn't. Or yeah, it was like really weird. Totally screwed up everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. The U.S. government going down, could that be a bad thing? No, actually, it would be. I mean, considering the military is probably a big part of that. You definitely got to be able to keep the military going, especially, you know, if anything were to happen, that would certainly leave us vulnerable. What are some other services or touch-ons that you want to tell us about with the company that people should know about?
Yeah, I want to actually step back to so now that we're talking about this kind of disaster piece, this is kind of interesting, Chris, because we actually have a much broader vision for the company. If you think about this of CAST as a platform, we're getting to this place called product market fit, which basically means you have an addressable market, customers have find a usable product where they get a tremendous amount of value. They might be complaining about lack of features. Actually, the theory goes the more customers complain that hey they want more features, the better your fit into the market is because they're not going anywhere. They need the platform in order to succeed. So we're going through this product market fit journey right now on one leg of the stool, which is this cost optimization piece. But if you look at the overall like kind of computer environment, there are a lot of processes that need to be automated, and we call these kind of autonomous systems. Just like if you own a Tesla, it can drive itself automatically, or other EVs in the future. We believe that kind of these cloud environments should drive themselves automatically or autonomously. So, and one of those kind of second pillars that we want to tackle is exactly this area of disaster recovery. Like, why do you as a customer have to choose a cloud? Like, Why do you have to say, okay, I'm all in on AWS or I'm all in on Google? Why can't you do what the US government did and say, I want to pick two and I'm going to run my stuff in such a way that's fluid so that if one goes down, my business isn't in jeopardy, right? So
Yeah.
I'm not scrambling for 2 weeks to kind of break the vault and get the tapes, like this whole old school disaster recovery mechanism of trying to restore everything once you have a huge outage, like
Hmm.
Facebook had, like Google had a few weeks ago, where many customers were down. So our ultimate, like now that once we've got cost under control, the next thing we want to get under control is this disaster piece and allowing customers to flow seamlessly between 2 or 3 clouds without any outage, even if one of them goes down. And
Hmm.
that's something we're going to be looking like. We've already got the underpinnings for that technology in the platform, and we're going to be looking at that as a commercial offering in the next year.
Do you I don't know if this is applicable, but this whole new metaverse thing that Facebook is trying to re-engineer and stuff, do you see any of that coming into play for AI and what's going on, or is it still a little bit I don't know, hype or blue sky? I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of hype, and then there's some reality.
Uh,
Uh, I'm societally very concerned that we're going to have a bunch of kids that are living in some alternate reality, playing video games for a living, that never actually have a chance to procreate, and we lose a whole generation. Um, but if our technology would be applicable, so we're a tools provider, right? We're the picks
mhm.
and shovels of the infrastructure business, which means that if there's going to be new innovation in augmented reality, virtual reality, that ends up being kind of the the formation of the metaverse or Web 3.0, they need computers to run on. They need to pay for those computers with money, and so we're going to be the ones saving those innovators the the money that lets them grow their business effectively.
Wow, that should be pretty cool. Any other aspects we want to touch on before we go out?
No, I think the key thing is, well, first of all, we're hiring. So if you're an
Oh,
engineer and want to work on cool stuff, I'm going to just do that shameless plug, Chris. Sorry.
there you go.
All over Europe, North America, give me a shout. Because it's like I said, we're short on really great engineers in the world, and we are going to be building some really cool next generation automation and AI associated with that automation. So I'm pretty excited. Looking forward to the next stages of the journey.
That's important. All my friends that are, Silicon Valley coders and stuff, I have a whole bunch of them. AI is the thing. Can they work remotely, or do they have to, be in Silicon Valley or one of your offices?
Yeah, you can see I'm in my office right now, which is
Yeah.
just my home. But no, we don't. We have offices, but it's never been a requirement, right? So
Wow. Yeah.
folks work wherever they want to work. I got a guy working on the beach. As long as he delivers, I don't care, right? Like, have
He's
at
got
it.
the Zoom thing with the beach behind him and the waves and bikini
Yeah.
girls walking by, and he's like, "I'm sitting here working, hey."
People think it's a virtual background. It's totally fine.
Where's that guy who's going around? He's like riding the motorcycle and he's got the green screen attached to his body and he's at the football games and stuff. And yeah, there you go. Well, that's I've been able to work anywhere in the world since 2004. So as long as I got a Wi-Fi connection and then even if I don't, I can just check it on email. So it's a beautiful thing. Give us your plugs so people can find you guys on the interwebs and get to know more about you.
On the interwebs, we're at www.cast.ai, and
Mhm.
you can hit me up on LinkedIn at Executive CTO, or find me by name. And we've got, and then a really cool thing, once you hit our website, it's a completely, just if you're an engineer, you want to give this heck a run, just sign up, run it for no cost. There's like a trial period, like you don't have to put a credit card down. It's pretty cool.
Wow.
We also have a really great um, open source Slack community where you can just join our Slack channel and talk to all of our engineers, all of other customers. It's a really nice open community to share information and learnings. Also, AWS is a big show every year. It's reInvent. It's this year in November in Las Vegas, your hometown, Chris. So
Yeah.
we're going to be exhibiting our stuff at reInvent, and we're pretty excited about some of the innovations we're going to be showing there.
That should be pretty. That should be pretty awesome. The you also guys also have a cost calculator, so if people want to figure out what their cost savings would be, they can just go on your website and punch in some numbers and figure out what they can save.
Oh, that's a really good point, Chris. So
Mhm.
we have this mode where the software runs in this kind of benign read-only mode. You don't have to turn on any automation. You install this thing, and it tells you up front, based on your actual application running, here's how much you're wasting, and here's how much you could save, and here's how. And you don't have to pay anything for that report. So, and you can just continuously run it forever, and just pick up the recommendations from there. So even if you've got a really tiny environment, you don't think you want to be a commercial customer, just install this thing and you'll get all the goods.
There you go. There you go. Well, it's been wonderful to have you on. Very insightful. Wonderful journey that you've taken and gone on. And of course, it's an interesting world now where it's we're all one big world, and as long as we got computers run everything. But yeah, I mean, AI is the future of everything. I mean, I just constantly hear people talking about that, and the metaverse seems to be the big new thing. That and NFTs, but stick with AI for now.
Yeah. we we just have to decide if we're going to take, what is it, the blue pill or the red pill. Like that's
Yeah, it is. I know the whole. Yeah, it's. I have some friends that they just grab onto whatever the latest noise is or fad is, but fun is fun. So thanks for being on the show, Leon. We certainly appreciate it and your story and everything else.
Thank you so much, Chris. It was great to talk to you. Look forward to chatting real soon.
There you go. And thanks, my audience, for tuning in. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Hit the bell notification button. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss. See everything we're reading and reviewing over there to get smarter. And go to all of our groups: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Just search for my name or the Chris Voss Show. You can find so many different things that we have out there. It's crazy, all the social we have. Oh, and check out my new newsletter on LinkedIn. That thing is growing like fire. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Be good to each other, and we'll see you guys